All right, everybody. So we'll go ahead and get going, and as if anyone else comes in, we'll just come on in. Um, just to recap, for those who don't know me, my name is David Seidel. I'm a firefighter, fire captain for Malmstrom Air Force Base Fire Department. I'm one of 7 or 8 civilians in the department as a whole. Everyone else is active duty, so I get to wear blue uniforms and have out of reg mustaches and things like that, and I get to make fun of the active duty guys, when they're doing things. I've been doing that between active duty. I did 13 years active duty. I came up to Missoula after I got out to be close to my kids because they were living in Missoula at the time. Went and did photography school because at the time I thought I was going to be too broke for anything else. That turned into me getting hired on the Air Force Base. And I've been there. So I've been doing fire for about 20 years. I've been doing search and rescue since I was 15. So I've been doing that for about 25 years now. I've been done SAR a little all over the place. I did it in Hawaii, which is very unique. Um, I spent about 8 years in Las Vegas, where some of you guys are right now. I was there the first official night that Red Rock Search and Rescue formed, and very similar to our friends from up here in Browning. Um, they formed, for those who don't know, they're a nonprofit independent 501c3 organization. And they formed out of a response because they had a close friend go missing. And the local agencies, how can I tactfully say, um, they kind of came together as spontaneous volunteers to help with the search. Uh, oh, with that. Deb. Deb, can you hear us? Marco.
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, just checking, madam. It's good to hear from you again. Um, so anyway, yeah, so 25 years volunteer search and rescue. Started teaching this fundamental search and rescue stuff to Red Rock when they first started because I'm like, hey, you guys need some sort of standard of training. You can't just be making this up. Like that's going to cause you guys into trouble. Um, and been kind of doing it ever since. I'm on my second search and rescue dog, Bane. He just got another certification over the weekend for life find and cadaver. And here we are today. Heard from you guys. Somebody posted something on a Facebook group called SAR Talk and was like, hey, we got this new group up here. And I was like, what? I had no idea. Um, Up here in the Great Falls area, we've gotten a lot of pushback from the local search and rescue team. They want nothing to do with canines, which is why right now there's a search that we could probably nip in the butt fairly quickly, but they would rather go play with their ATVs and their drones and then to do tactics. And we'll talk about that later, but it is what it is. So I'm part of the newly formed Central Montana Canine team. We have about 5 handlers. We got 5, 6 handlers right now, and about 7 dogs that are certified and operational. Wait, hold on, that's not right. 4 dogs that are operational and fully certified right now, and we're just getting things going with that. There was another group called True North Canine. They were down in Helena. They informed us about 2 months ago that they have disbanded. So we're like, well, I guess we're gonna do our own thing. Anyone got any questions for me before we move on? All right. All right. In the chat, as we're going on some admin stuff, can everybody please put, and I know some of you guys are doubled up, but please put everyone's first name, last name, and an email address. So I got that for our class roster. And that way you guys will be able to get links and everything else a lot more efficiently. All right, so like I said, this fundamentals of search and rescue. This is going to go on between today and the goal is the weekend of May 17th, pending any major changes. We will be doing a skills weekend up in Brownie, and we'll figure out those details as we get a little closer. We're recording this session, so make sure not to say anything too inappropriate. Even though we do say some pretty dark humor stuff in the world of public safety. But we're going to be recording all this for the people who couldn't make it in here and try to keep everybody going along. This is my first time teaching this method via Zoom and breaking it up this much. Traditionally, I would do this over like 2 weekends, 2 or 3 weekends, where we'll just do the death by PowerPoint, hands-on skills, and the next weekend we're doing um, testing out and whatnot. So this is a little new of a format, but I've been teaching this stuff for quite a while. All right. Oops. There we go. Like I said, all that fun stuff. Like I said, where you guys are down in Las Vegas right now. I was there. I was Red Rock member 107. And then I think I eventually became Red Rock 8 at some point before I left and got moved to Texas, where I was teaching at the DoD Fire Academy. Okay, sorry. So the fundamentals of search and rescue, all this fun stuff that we're talking about, why it's important, is it meets all this gibberish that you see in front of you. It's all these national standards and international standards, which we will talk way more in depth here in the next couple chapters. It probably won't be tonight when we get into those ones. Um, but the basis is they're going off an actual standard. You will run into, depending on where you are, search and rescue tends to be very geographical based. And so if you're in, let's say, California, a lot of them they were pushing ASAR for a long time, certifications, and then they had a lot of in-house things. You might have heard of from the canine world, CARTA. It's still a good certification, but it's only good in California, technically. Arizona and Virginia, they do their own courses very similar to this. But the NASAR one is supposed to be, for those who are familiar with like EMTs and stuff, of National Registry EMT. This is kind of on the same basis where this certification is supposed to float around with you wherever you are in the United States, Canada, and a few countries actually in Europe. So it's a international certification of like, hey, I've earned this, which tells me if I'm the search manager, the incident commander saying, hey, you should be able to do X, Y, and Z. I should be able to put you in the field and you shouldn't be a burden. You should be a help. Okay. Why is this stuff important? Okay. Um, why we're pushing this, or at least why I'm trying to push you guys to get this and help you, is it shows that you have a standard like I was talking about. You see it sadly a whole bunch in Montana, and actually they got it going right now. That search that I was telling you about that's going on right now. I heard the sheriff deputy goes, "Oh yeah, I just ran into some family members who had no idea that I don't know what his name is, but little uh, Timmy was missing. They had no idea. They are now part of the search party." And I'm like, "What? You now have what we refer to as spontaneous volunteers helping," which to some people are like, hey, that's a great thing. We got more people, more hands, more eyes. Me as an incident commander, though, if I'm sitting back here and I'm going, okay, now I have a liability. Now I have individuals that I don't know what they're aware of. I don't know what they're trained to. They have no crime scene. I don't know what their background is. I don't know anything about these guys. And now they're wandering and stomping around all over my search area and potentially contaminating it. There was another search in Tacoma, south of Seattle recently, and a gal got swept in the water while walking her dog. Her dog got in the water. She went after the dog. The dog got out. She didn't. And all the local high-end mountain rescue people were like, "Nope, nope, water's too fast. This is too dangerous. We need to wait." And all their friends and stuff were like, "Nope, we're gonna go out there searching." And they were doing some very, very unsafe things, and it was very hard to watch because you're just like, someone's gonna get hurt, someone's gonna get died. And so we're doing this to one, hey, let's prevent ourselves from getting hurt and dying and all those kind of things. And two, you're showing verification to somebody, especially if you're working outside of the reservation, if you're working into a different county, you can come up and say, no, no, I actually have an idea of what I'm doing. Where can you put me? What I got up here, you can see this from the book of Facebook. Um, this is from a Facebook page from Canine Stolen Valor. During the North Carolina madness that was going on a couple months ago with all the hurricanes, everybody came out of the woodwork. There were many people who were self-deploying, which is a major no-no. There were people such as this gentleman who were coming out, they were searching, and then they're like going to family members and like, okay, now you need to compensate me that I just came from across the nation to help for you. Um, that is extremely unethical. These individuals say they have trained dogs, but there's no actual certification, or you ask what they are, a whole bunch of shady stuff. And so we're trying to stay away from that, which is why the NASAR thing um, has a lot of validity to it. It has a lot of ground and basis of like, hey, I actually know what that is. Most of the county search and rescue teams talk about they want their members to have this certification. Um, to my knowledge, I'm one of the only actual SARTech evaluators in the state. There's plenty of canine evaluators. Deb, I believe, is one of them. Um, However, from the grunt side of things, a lot of these agencies haven't been doing that, and they've been just making stuff up. So this is a more of the story. Right, getting back on topic is we're trying to focus on standardization of our training, of our capabilities, so you can go to people and say, no, no, I can go out into the woods for 24 to 72 hours and I can operate within your organization, augment your search. I could be useful and I'm not a liability. Throughout this course, we're going to provide, talk about your general responsibilities, skills, and equipment that you need. This course is based on the idea that you've never been on a search before and you don't know what you're doing. This is to build you up. So if there's some things in here that seems like, okay, that's really common sense, a lot of things in public safety, especially like fire, law enforcement, and search and rescue, they'll have a segment of like, this might seem like common sense, but sadly, common sense is no longer common in this world. So we have to talk about it. We're going to provide practical exercises. We'll be doing a mock search again on that skills weekend. And the three major areas that they're trying to talk about here is skills that fall underneath survival, your support, and then the actual operation of search and rescue, the actual searching. You can see this individual here is looking at a track, and some of you might be able to recognize there's a footprint right here, and he's setting up how to use his tracking pole, which is also this walking stick. And we'll be talking about that in a later chapter. The certifications for the SARTech, they go, some people might think it goes in the opposite number. You got 1 through 4. The bigger the number, the more less operational it is. We'll be talking about what a type 1 wilderness searcher is compared to a type 5. They're going off of that basis. So the bigger number is means that you have more capability. So SARTech 2 means, hey, you're working in the wilderness environment, you're an operational and technical able individual. SAR Nt1, which we can look at doing after this course, gets into a lot more technical operations, night navigations, night searches, some low angle rescue stuff, which is a whole lot of fun. They're also in the middle of rebuilding that program. But after we're done with this, if people want to continue on with that, more than happy to, we can look at trying to teach one of those as well. Um, okay. So at the completion of this course, um, we'll get into, yeah, sorry for bouncing around on you guys. So NASAR has changed things slightly in the last couple of years. Back in the day, I would just give you a nice written test and skills at the end of the course. Now, what they have you do is they have you buy this SAR bundle, which I believe Dana has been working on with NASAR directly, because that SAR bundle, you guys should be able to get at a cheaper rate than Bob off the street if they went and tried to buy it to get access to that site. Um, it's much more expensive. So she's working out that. So by the end of the course, we need everybody to have that. That's where you're going to be uploading a number of certifications. You're going to be uploading some task books, which we'll talk about in the next slide or two, that I'm going to sign saying that, hey, yes, you can do this. Yes, we went over this. And you're going to upload all those things online. And then you hit the little submit button, and then they say, congratulations, you're now a SARTech. That test I last heard was about 75 questions. What's nice about it is technically it's open book because you're doing it from home and you can actually pause the timer. We just had some individuals who took it and they uh, spread it out over quite a large time. But this course is supposed to prepare you for that test. So as you're going through things, or if you're questioning yourself on something, it shouldn't be completely new information. All right. All right. So when I mentioned about that FUNSAR, and you're going to have to upload various certifications and checkbox. So by the end of this fun course, um, you're going to need to complete, if you have not already, um, ICS 100, 700, and 800. Those are free courses um, from FEMA. I'll bring that link up right now. Um, what ICS is Incident Command System. And this is what is required post 9/11. Everyone who deals with disasters, rescues, public safety, everybody is required to have this. And you can totally go into the weeds with these certifications, but we want everybody from dump truck drivers bringing sand to make sandbags to have this or these ICS courses as well to the most advanced incident commander. Everybody has the same courses. Now I just need these completed by the end of the course. And I'm dropping the link into the chat right now, just so you can find it. That's where ICS 100 is. You'll also need to do 700 and 800 by the end. Luckily, once you've done one, they start to become redundant and they just kind of start to repeat themselves with some of the knowledge. So I would pay attention to the ICS 100 course. And then as you're doing the other ones, they should be starting to repeat themselves. Um, Luckily, you have an ICS nerd who happens to have a bachelor's degree in emergency management. So any questions that you have while you're doing it, like Dave, what on earth are they talking about here? Shoot me an email, call me, I'll walk you through it. For those who do not have basic first aid and BLS CPR, we will need to do that as well. I mentioned to Dana, and I'll be sending you guys information in your emails. So I will be needing um, $50 um, from you guys by the end of this course, but sooner than later, so I can assign you that training as well. You're gonna do, and that's why I'm trying to do it now, so you have time to complete um, all these little tasks and all this information. I know it seems like a lot, but they'll all start to overlap, and um, it'll all come together. But I need $50 so I can get you into the courses and the cards. And so when we do that skills weekend, we'll also do your hands-on for CPR and first aid when we do that. So when you walk out of here, you're going to be all built up together and ready to rock and roll as a proper searcher. You're going to have your basic first aid, you're going to have your ICS, you're going to have your bloodborne pathogens because a lot of you guys are doing HRD stuff. So you're going to want to be able to do that as well. So where I'm just throwing that in there as well, and that's you. I'm charging you at cost of what the cards are. I just can't front that money. So as soon as I get that $50 from you guys, I'll send you those links and assign you to that class, and then you'll have that month to just nibble on that over time. Any questions on that? I know that was a whole lot of information.
Nope, sounds good.
Uh, what about those of us that already have a oodles and boodles of certifications in relation to all that stuff?
Ah, yes, to my paramedic in the room. Yes, we just need to I just have to sign the task book and verify that, and I know you have a paramedic certification because you were training on my ambulance.
Yeah.
So you just verify that, hey, you show me that, hey, I have something at this level or higher, and you're good. Um, I should have mentioned that. So if anyone has already completed some of these ICS courses, hey, great, you don't have to take it again. On the FUNSAR stuff, if you already have some of the certification or some of the things that wants in there, including that crime scene prevention stuff, I heard some of you guys already have done that, which is awesome. You just need to upload a copy of that file and you're done. We're just putting everything together.
Sorry, I'm late. I lost my phone.
Not a problem. We got this recording. We just got finished. My name's David, by the way. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And hold on, I got too many screens open. And we were just talking about kind of the whole mess that you guys have just walked into. So I'm going to show you guys something totally nerdish for a second. So, so I mentioned earlier about like what a SARTEC 2 is and a SARTEC 1 and how it kind of matches some resources. This is from FEMA, Department of Homeland Security, and they started developing what we call resource typing. And the reason being, as we were talking earlier about like, oh, I got a SAR team from Arizona. Arizona has their own internal certification, and now they're helping, let's say, something going on the border with Red Rock Search and Rescue and Metro out of Vegas. Well, what are you? Well, if you come up to this chart, it talks about what the team is, what your search capabilities are, if you need any special key people in your personnel, and it goes down into equipment and specialties and your training, right? And so when you're done here with all this SARTEC 2 stuff, you're going to be the equivalent of right now of a Type 3 wilderness search and rescue team member. That's what we're trying to build you up. And you're like, okay, Dave, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That's a whole bunch of French right now. I get that. But this is huge ammo. So when you go up to, let's say, hey, Flathead, we hear that you guys have a big search. You want some hand? I can get you a 12-person Type 3 wilderness search team to you guys. And they're like, wait, what? You guys are speaking fancy nerd language. And all of a sudden, they're going to start getting impressed with you because now you're not just saying, hey, we have a bunch of random searchers. You're saying, no, 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 we're organized and we meet this qualification. And this is going to get you some serious teeth
Okay.
in Montana. Because if you look at right now, I know a couple of you guys just joining on. I had the radio going on earlier because Cascade County is doing a search right now, 20 minutes from me in Sims, looking for some teenager. And their standard of training is StarTech 3, which is an online certification. Most of their members don't even have that, and that's only at what we refer to as the awareness level. So there's no hands-on portion. It's just book knowledge. There, and it's like, okay, when you guys finish this, you're going to have more teeth than them, than the entire team. And then from that, you can go into, if you get your dog certified through NASAR, this is a prerequisite for that as well. So this will be a huge stepping stone that then we can start doing other advanced stuff later on. But the moral of the story, this is why we're doing it. This is why there's so much work to it. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through it together. Do not feel stressed out. My goal is to help develop you over the next month plus to get to this point. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Throw that off the screen. All right. Officially, the book for this course is this is the latest version. If you don't have it, you can order on from NASAR. I get it at a slightly cheaper amount. So if people want some, if people give me a head count, I can make an order and I can buy those for $60 for you guys. Which is a lot cheaper. I think Amazon's like trying to charge these like $90 or something absolutely ridiculous. I would recommend if you guys have an account for the team, perhaps buying like 5 of these, and then that way you just keep rotating the books within the team as an option for you guys. And I talked about that
Copy
NASAR,
that.
and I mentioned about that NASAR registration. As I mentioned before, Deb's going to be working on that. I know she was emailing the secretary to make sure that you guys get the, because you already have a team membership with NASAR. And so by doing that, that gets you guys a much cheaper rate for when you start to register for all this stuff. Right. I will. Does everyone have a copy of the schedule? If not, I will resend that out when I send out the email. And as mentioned before, we're going to be trying to record these. And so anybody who misses them because life happens, a search happens, family event, whatnot, you still will be able to keep up with the material. Cool. How's everybody doing? Did I lose everybody?
Doing good.
All right. All right. Enough of this nonsense. All right. What is search and rescue? I talk about all these. Sorry. We're going to be talking about what search and rescue is. We're going to be talking about the USR school. We're going to talk about these cool agencies, including Civil Air Patrol, that I'm also part of. They're kind of a hit and miss organization, but I'll talk about when we get to them. Coast Guard Auxiliary. Talk about other significant agencies and entities as well. And then we're going to talk about some of the international SAR organizations. You're like, why on earth are we talking about this? Well, this is an international CERT. So we have to briefly talk about it because if we cross over and say, hey, we backfill a big search over the border into Canada, right? technically we're still able to operate because one, they recognize NASAR, and two, because of these organizations, these international organizations, that allows us of, hey, this is how we're going to talk to each other and support each other. Okay. Search and rescue has been out for centuries. Just with technology and the way that human populations have started to integrate and expand out, that has caused people to become less reliant on survival skills. As we know, about 2 weeks ago, I'm sure our friends who are down in Vegas right now for the conference, if you haven't heard about it, they just had a massive search down at the Arizona Hot Springs south of the Hoover Dam. They rescued 20 special needs students and 10 adults because they went and hiked when it was 100 degrees, and within 45 minutes they're out of water. And I heard there were a couple life flights, and that exact location, in a very similar scenario, I actually did about 10 years ago for a bunch of college age kids, including one that was pregnant, about 8 months pregnant. They're all walking to the hot springs, ran out of water, everyone started getting sick. And it's become such a problem now that they have closed off that trail about 8 months out of the year. And so that trail should have been just about the point
Hmm.
to close for the year, or close until about October, until late October. But they had a hot day already, and it got a whole bunch of people into a lot of trouble because they thought it was going to be a simple, easy hike, and they didn't bring everything that they should have. They didn't bring enough water. And that's kind of where people are getting into trouble. A lot of our modern practices and stuff from search and rescue came from the military, especially during particularly World War II, when we started having these things called airplanes, and these very large open battles over the sea. And so we learned a whole lot of practices for water searches and aerial searches and searches for aircraft as a result from that. And that crossed over to the housing boom and everything that we were just talking about. Okay. Search and rescue, just as the name says, to search. Search is to locate the individual. So normally I would say if we were in a classroom, I was ask everybody to raise your hand if you are a canine handler or canine handler in training, because that's our primary objective, right? When we're a canine handler now, yeah, sure. If I happen to be an EMT, we find our live subject, yeah, we're going to switch over to medical care mode. But my primary objective is locating Timmy lost in the woods, right? We're trying to do the methods to search either by man tracking with trailing, dogs, drones, horses, all those different resources. That's focusing on the search aspect of it. And then, come on. And then the rescue, which is the cool, flashy stuff, that's retrieving individuals. That could be medical, other needs, technical rescue, all that fun stuff. Now, I would say that 95% of search and rescue is really just focusing on individuals. That's why people are getting called. You have that little 5% bubble, maybe a little higher than that, and that's the niche little bubble. That's the stuff that Two Bear's going on, right? Because bluntly speaking, Sally, they're not going to call me, or they're going to rarely call me down at Maelstrom and say, hey, we might need your helicopter. Because 9 times out of 10, Glacier National Park, if somebody's hurt on way on top of a mountain, they're going to be calling local resources. They're going to be calling a technical team, and they're calling Two Bear with a cool helicopter. Hey, we know where they are. They need to get out. That's the rescue aspect out of it. The search going on right now for that teenager out in Sims, that's the search aspect of it. We're trying to figure out where Timmy has wandered off to. We mentioned before the three categories that NASAR likes to break everything up into is your search skills, your rescue skills, and your survival support skills. Hey, that's if you get stuck on the mountain right now, and right now it's trying to snow outside. You go outside and it starts snowing on you when in the middle of the search and it turns into whiteout conditions. You could hunker down somewhere and survive the night uncomfortably, but we're trying to build you up that we know that, hey, if you get stuck in the field overnight, you're going to be okay. It's really important to mention that when individuals go missing, a lot of times, especially the experienced hunter, the mountaineers, those types of individuals, when you start to go looking for those individuals, they're like, okay, this guy's really skilled. What what occurred that made things really bad that incapacitated this individual or got this person lost? We're now walking into that hazard. So be mindful of that. That's not a good slide. Rescue training, like we talked. Yeah. So again, well, let's just talking about search. Let's focus on the searching aspects, such as dogs, planning, search theory, and then rescue is those aspects of gaining access to an individual. Mountainous, ice rescue, water rescue, urban, swift water, all that fun stuff. As mentioned before, survival, that's your abilities. Those skills include signaling, navigating, talk about fitness, we'll talk about communication and basic wilderness survival. So, like I mentioned before, um, you get stuck in the middle of the night, you get stuck on the mountaintop, and like, hey, don't worry, you know what? It's so bad, the weather's so bad. We're just gonna pop up a couple of tarps and we're gonna make a shelter and we're just gonna make a little campfire. We're gonna chill out here and eat some MREs and be cold all night. But we're gonna be safe and we're not gonna put ourselves into more danger than we need to. Mindful of this for my canine handlers and horse equestrian individuals. You get the added bonus of remember, you got to do this stuff, but not just this stuff for you. You have to do it for your canine partner or your horse partner as well. The National Search School, which is this, which if you guys can see, let's get, you gonna focus? Oh, you punk. All right, it's not focusing, but that is the patch for the basic course for the National Search School. It's a joint operation between the U.S. Coast Guard and the Air Force. The Air Force is responsible for all inland search and rescue, and the Coast Guard is responsible for all shores and out to 200 miles from the U.S. borders, because then it turns into international waters. After that point, it will sometimes switch over to the Air Force, where they'll launch long distance pararescue guys, have them jump out of C-130s, to land on cargo ships and stuff, having medical emergencies, and they'll do very long distance rescue operations at that point that the Coast Guard doesn't have, because the Coast Guard traditionally does not have in-flight refueling. But that's just some of the fun stuff. The SAR school is a lot big of that is focusing on the planning and procedures and letting individuals know about combining different resources. Search and rescue is a community, it is a local focus entity. And there are resources at the federal level that can be called on to assist your search, and people forget about that or unaware of that. And this SAR school is bringing it into like, hey, let's teach you how to bring these resources in. Oh, you have a large area to search on the reservation? Cool. Let's bring some Civil Air Patrol fixed wing aircraft to search low and slow, and we can have a helicopter from Malmstrom on standby at base camp. Those are some of the resources that you can bring in, is what they're trying to talk about in these schools. The basic inland course, which is what this patch is a 2-day course. And then the longer inland search planning course is a 5-day course, which goes into further into advanced search theory and applications. Those courses are free. And later I will drop in the website to these courses. But that is more for the search manager kind of level of things. Okay. For tools for search and rescue, right? You're going to have formal led education programs like this, team drills and exercises, and of course, you're going to gain response experience. Hey, this piece of gear worked. Hey, we tried to do some sort of operation and the communications was bad. All those things should come back and should talk and debrief and figure out like, okay, how can we make this better? And it shouldn't be I'm poking fingers at anybody. It's more of like, okay, how can we make things better? What were we weak on? But with team drills and team exercises, that's incredibly important, and people forget that. And there are a number of search and rescue teams in the state that I'll just keep my mouth shut to, who they'll do training, they'll do something like rope rescue. They're like, cool, we got certified in rope rescue, and then they won't touch ropes for 3 years. And I'm just horrified because certain skills like rope rescue, water rescue, swift water, you got to be proficient on that. Those skills dissipate very rapidly. If you're not practicing of actively searching for Timmy in the woods rather than just driving around on ATVs, your search ability is probably going to be fairly low. Standards and regulations, right? This improves safety. This improves professionality. A lot of this stuff, sadly, has evolved from tragic and near miss events in the world of firefighting. You see that constantly. We routinely review about monthly about fatal firefighters or near miss reports to be like, okay, what happened that got them into that bad place? And that could be anything from faulty equipment was not checked out properly, conditions on the fire scene change, and we weren't able to alert the individuals inside, all sorts of things. But just like in the firefighting world, that crosses over into, hey, we do things differently now because of these events. Probably about, I think, oh gosh, probably about 15 years ago, Metro Las Vegas search and rescue team, which is the sheriff department, they were doing a hoist operation. They were doing training, and they lost one of their deputies because faulty equipment on the hoist, and he dropped 80 feet. After that evaluation, that went nationwide, and everyone realized, oh wait, the type of hook that they were using, there was a defect that nobody was aware of, and now that defect and that type of equipment has been removed from all the helicopters. But sadly, it takes those type of events to realize, oh, we got a problem. But again, standards and
Yeah,
regulations.
you see it every year in fire.
Exactly. And of course, regulations and
Yeah,
standards.
I've been doing wildland firefighting for 15 years.
Yes, sir. And then, so a lot of wilderness search and rescue, you should be seeing a whole lot of overlap with kind of some of the operations in the ICS structures. So hopefully a lot of this is familiar. Again, regulations and standards. Yeah, that's all the paperwork stuff, but that's there so that, hey, we're searching effectively. Examples of some people that help develop standards for like NASAR. ASTM International is a big think tank group that helps devise and say, hey, this is the type of helmet we want for rock climbing. Like they'll get into the weeds on things. That also includes to what is a search and rescue technician, what is a operational level search and rescue technician, all that stuff from that entity has fed down to what you guys are seeing tonight. All right, get involved in search and rescue. Some other organizations mentioned here, a whole bunch of alphabet soup. National Association for Search and Rescue, NASAR on top. Note, NASAR is not a search element. They are a certifying entity, right? They don't organize teams. They just help train them and try to get everybody to the same standard. Think of it for my firefighter world of the National Wildfire Working Group, or IFSAC. Those certifications that we use in probably about 48 states, are recognized in about 48 states. Those same standards, those same certifications, that's what NASAR was trying to push out. MRA, which is Mountain Rescue Association, those are the guys on the ropes and doing the high alpine stuff. CAP is Civil Air Patrol. U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, they are volunteers of the Coast Guard. What's really interesting about them is they are completely integrated with normal Coast Guard. So even though we have a unit, which I've never been able to get a hold of in Montana up on Flathead, those guys, if they want to, can say, hey, I want to come out and volunteer for a week or two in the summer, and they get to go jump on a Coast Guard cutter for a week or two, and they are literally doing their job on the cutter as a volunteer. Most of that is support, communications, search and rescue based. U.S. Freedom Corps, that was a big push after 9/11. We'll talk about that more. Community emergency response teams. We'll talk about that here in the next slide or two. And then you have national, state, and local organizations. What you guys are doing up on the reservation is totally awesome. That would be classic local organization. A state organization would be if you guys got so big that your entity is now over all of the reservations in Montana and you have chapters in each location, or a state urban search and rescue team. And then national resources would have been like what we were just talking about with the Coast Guard and CAP. Okay. Talked about all of that stuff. Anyone have any questions on NASAR? No. There's more talking about those certifications we talked about. Some of you, I think you've already gotten into managing the lost person incident. That's a really good course to take later on, especially if you're going to be command post or search manager kind of roles, incident commanders. Mountain Rescue Association, they're a great organization. A lot of them are focusing on ice and technical rescue kind of scenarios way up in the alpine situations. So in Kansas and stuff, you don't see these guys so much. In Tacoma, Spokane, Colorado and stuff, this organization is all over the place down there. They are also a certifying entity. They also have some free training online. What happened there? They also have some free training, which we could show at the end, but I don't want to overload you guys. More stuff about them. Civil Air Patrol, mentioned about that. A lot of people think of these guys of just, oh, they're the ones that have the teenagers and do the cadets. And I'm like, well, yes, that's a component of it. But these guys initially started out to help the Air Force. First, they were doing coastal patrol and dropping bombs on subs in World War II. And then after World War II, they kept these guys around because when they reorganized all the military branches, they said, hey, we got all these airplanes. We're starting to have these airplane searches. We now have an Air Force. Hey, Air Force, you're now in charge of search and rescue all within the United States. And so if it's over land, it's the Air Force. If it's over water, it's the Coast Guard. And the Air Force goes, wow, there's a whole lot of space that we can't quite get to. Oh, yeah, we got this volunteer group. So they kept Civil Air Patrol around for various services, including ground search and rescue, aerial support, mission base. One of the roles that they've been doing a lot lately, and I want you guys to keep this in mind because this is a great resource, is if you know that little Timmy ran off and you know that he has a cell phone, they have an entire section to these guys, and it's free. It's free of charge. It's a federal resource, and they're all volunteers. And they will do cell phone forensic. Now, the sheriff department may be able to do it, but they usually take a couple days because that's not their full-time job. These guys will have it back to you within like 8 hours, and it'll be like, cool, the last pin that we got was here, and we've got about a 5 foot accuracy of that, plus or minus 5 feet. That last cell phone hit was here. Even if they're not there anymore, that gives you a last known location that then, hey, we can now focus to search on instead of searching for all of these, looking for that needle in all these haystacks. We can just focus on that one haystack. And some more facts about those guys. Again, small aircraft, great for especially wide area searches. They're starting to get some drones. They are a resource available to you, especially at the reservation level, because you're technically already at the federal level. You can ask them right away. You don't have to deal with the state. You don't have to deal with anything. You just call them. Additionally, in order to activate these guys, is the same process to activate the helicopter squadron at Malmstrom. And there's absolutely no reason why you can't ask for both resources. Coast Guard Auxiliary kind of beat down the dead horse as well. Like I said, a bunch of volunteer stuff. They do a bunch of cool stuff, more on the coastal regions. But I do know that there's some sort of entity up at Flathead. Again, talking about some of the cool programs that happen after 9/11. Anyone have any questions on these entities? Food for a thought for your leadership, you guys. Once we get you guys through this, it might be something to look into to try to link up with some of like the America Corps. Just because you might be able to get some sponsoring and some funding. Of course, we won't go into that, but the nation's at the federal level, there's a lot of reorganizing going on right now. But this is something that you guys might want to try to link into to get some resources. Some more programs orchestrated and controlled by FEMA. CERT, Canadian Emergency Response Teams. I have seen them the other day on Facebook. One of the CERT teams, I think in Louisiana, were actively working on a wilderness search and rescue operation. They are a resource. It can be these groups I've seen as, hey, it's a 2-weekend class, and I've also seen it where these guys are more organized than some volunteer fire departments. And I've seen the full gamut of that. But officially, this is a program that is orchestrated by FEMA and is typically managed at your county emergency manager office. If you have any of these entities up there, something to look into to try to do some joint training with them and use them as a resource. And here's just mentions about these international entities. Just know that they exist. All right. And in summary, right, we can talk about what the difference between search and rescue is. We can talk about those skill bases, right? The search, the rescue aspect, your survival and support, and your survival skills. Anyone have any questions on that? And how are we doing on time? All right. Everybody doing good, or you guys need a 5-minute bathroom break or anything?
I think we're good.
Okay, just checking. Trying to be mindful of you guys. All right. All right. The last chapter that we're going to go over tonight. So we're going to talk about your SAR system, kind of what is search and rescue really. We're going to talk about the components of your local systems, how you guys fit in. And we'll talk about some of that international aeronautical and maritime search stuff. We're going to talk about cool search and rescue satellites. And we'll have a honorable mention talking about that SAR committee, which is so far up, you guys will probably have very little to do with. But it's important to know that they exist, and all these standards basically filter down from those guys out of those recommendations. Yeah. And more resources. We'll talk about that NIMS real quick. And they like talking about urban search and rescue teams in this. We'll also explain the difference between an amber and a silver alert and how that works. And of course, hey, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I believe that is part of that conference going on in Vegas right now. All right. Search and rescue is based as a local entity, right? Regardless of how complex or what's going on, it's supposed to be focused on local resources, local responsibilities. In the state of Montana, that means that the sheriff department is responsible for all search and rescue entities as they're managing it as a missing person search. Does that mean that something bad has happened to that individual in a negative way? Not necessarily, but they're the ones responsible, and it is presumed possible until it has been properly ruled out. And a large number of these incidences are dealt with the local and county level, but as we have seen multiple times over the last couple of years, multiple resources have come in from different counties coming in together to help each other. There are state SAR coordinators. I'm still trying to figure out the workings on how Montana does theirs, because it seems that it's very hands-offish compared to places like Colorado and a nameless state on the West Coast. Those entities are completely linked in with the State Emergency Operations Center and a bunch of things going on with a whole bunch of emergency management nerds. So we're still trying to figure out how Montana does theirs. Theirs is much more hands-offish and kind of left at the local level. But each state is supposed to have coordinators in some way, shape, or form. And these organizations that you can see here, the ICAO and IMO, are global entities which allows coordination of who's going to search for who. So if you are on a sailing boat and you're somewhere between French Polynesia and Hawaii, all right, who's going to be looking for them, or who's going to go rescue for them? That's what these entities are supposed to be figuring that out. When I believe these entities also got involved when that soccer team, I think it was in the Philippines or Malaysia, that got stuck in the cave. These entities came in, and a lot of different special forces and special rescue organizations came in. A lot of that was coordinated through these kind of entities. Okay. Stages of a SAR operation. The first one is you become aware of a situation, right? We become aware that little Timmy has wandered off. Okay. First, you have the uncertain phase. This should all sound kind of familiar. With a couple searches that I know you guys are familiar with, right? Hey, Are they actually missing? Let's look around for a few minutes. Let's wander around. Timmy, are you here? Then we start to become alert that there's an issue, and then we become distressed. From there, we start to notify people saying, hey, I don't know where Timmy is. Sadly, in the state of Montana, that tends to be like, hey, I'm going to call the family, and the family's going to come out here. We don't call the sheriff's department first. We don't call you guys or local agencies on the reservation. Here, we're just going to call all of our friends. Okay, now we're going to search for a couple hours. And then we're going to be like, okay, now we're kind of having trouble. We're not having any luck. I guess we need some bigger guns. Now we're going to start calling these entities. Now, you know, there's this very long delay that's rapidly building up here. So that turns into planning, which turns into operations of like, so planning of like, hey, we're going to go search in the morning because weather's bad right now. But this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to start doing in the morning. Okay. Operation is the actual operation, boots on the ground. That turns into a conclusion. Hopefully, hey, nobody's in distress. Somebody accidentally set off a beacon at their campsite. Sheriff department comes in, does a welfare check, finds them sitting around the campfire drinking beer. Oh, okay. Oops. Hey, you hit your button on your emergency beacon. Oops, sorry about that. We locate the individual. The search becomes concluded. Search is eventually called off because of available resources. And then, as you guys know, the other phase that's not talked about here is talking about cold searches, where the primary search is now done, but we're going to continuously work areas to try to find our individual. Mentioned before, we get a lot of agreements between different countries. And from that, starts talking about the National Search and Rescue Committee, which the key thing with that is you just know that it exists, right? You will see this used occasionally at a national level. A good example of this would have been the giant search and rescue operation going down in North Carolina. That's when you see a lot of this. The committee and the planning starts to take effect. Katrina, those very large multi-state entities, that's when these resources and this planning starts to come in. Us at the local city, county level, we're typically not going to see it, but we need to be aware that, hey, this does exist. People do think of this. But that also opens the door for potential for deployment for us to, hey, there was a bunch of tornadoes that hit South Dakota. Okay, hey, they call us in, and there's a plan here of that allows us to cross states and be recognized that, hey, we know what we're doing, even though we're not from here, and to be liability covered. Airborne operations. This is like talk about domestic aircraft, typically general aircraft and commercial aircraft will monitor for emergency located transmitters. Every year, a commercial plane will be, let's say, over the Santa Cruz Mountains in California, or this has actually happened a couple times in Montana where, hey, I'm 30,000 feet and I'm flying over what I think is the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and I'm hearing an ELT beneath me. Okay, that gets relayed. That gets related to the state level, which then, okay, who's the closest resource there? Do we want to send some air patrol? Do we want to send the aeronautics people? Do we want to send, hey, Lincoln County, let's activate our Lewis and Clark. Hey, let's go have them go out there and scout out and see if they can find anything. Emergency located transmitters are the beacons that are on aircraft that are supposed to go off when they crash. And we'll talk about when we get into that a little more on why that happens and doesn't happen. The IMSAR manuals, again, a whole bunch of alphabet soup and things. You're not going to get a whole bunch of questions about this on your test. Just know that they exist. And this is the manuals that they update at the national level to coordinate stuff for international search and rescue between countries and entities. I'm just going to keep going on this. It's mission coordination and mobile facilities. Okay. CoolSpats and SARSAT. These are satellites, which are Russian and American and a couple other countries. Typically, these are weather satellites, and they'll have an extra antenna attached to them, and they're monitoring the international distress frequencies, which is 121.5, which is the old frequency megahertz, and then the 406 megahertz beacons, which are the new ones that are really fancy. It is the same frequency, the same basic system, and people can have these on aircraft. They can have them on boats, and they can also have them on themselves. If any of you guys have watch Deadliest Catch, and if you watch more than probably about 3 episodes, at some point they're talking about, oh shoot, we can hear an ELT, or excuse me, they might have called it an EPIR, but it's the exact same thing, except this one's the boat one. And they're like, hey, we're hearing the distress beacon. They're talking about this. These guys will be listening for the same things, regardless if it's a boat, it's a person, or if it's a plane. But, and you can see your cool little picture of how this works. So we'll say, hey, we got a distress beacon going off, goes up to the satellite, and they're trying to show that eventually somebody listening to that satellite goes, hey, there's an ELT going off in Montana, and that gets relayed down to your local entity to say, hey, go figure out, we hear a beacon over here in the Bob Marshall, we don't know what it is, go figure it out. And then that's where that pretty helicopter comes to go do the rescue. Some of these more advanced, see if there's a picture, beautiful. Some of more of these advanced beacons will actually have GPS attached to them, and they will give both digitally and audibly a GPS location. I've been on them before for looking for aircraft. You'll be listening and you'll hear the signal, the wheel, 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 and it'll be using various direction finding equipment to try to figure out where it's coming from. And all of a sudden you'll hear November 555, 120 degrees, 0.15, it'll say periodically over the radio its GPS location and the tail number to that aircraft, if you're lucky. Some of the more advanced ones. But at the same time, you can have these little personal ones. That is probably about the size of a cell phone. That's very popular for people who go out, especially into like the Bob Marshall and stuff like that. This will work. Again, very, very useful, very accurate. EPIRB. It's an ELT, but for a boat. That's the idea with that. A lot of these are designed that if the boat flips over, it is to detach and hopefully float to the surface and immediately start signaling from its last known location. That is the hope, and you see that a couple times on Deadliest Catch, where that very situation occurs. ELTs in airplanes, as mentioned before, if you have an aviation band radio or a ham radio, you can actually listen into this frequency. Even though they've switched over to the 406 megahertz frequency, you just need to be aware of that. The old frequencies are still, they'll dual transmit. So you can still listen on that 121.5 frequency, even though it's also transmitting on the 406. And then personal ones, they first started coming out about 2003. No, we thought we were going to get 1 million back in 2003. We thought we were going to get just an insane amount of accidental activations for these things, but that has not happened. Does anyone have any questions on the distress beacons? Everybody doing good? All right.
Yeah, we're good.
We're solid.
Okay. Kind of confusing slide. Again, it's just more talking about, just like before, your ELT on an airplane, your personal one, your boat one, and it's getting eventually relayed to your local coordination center, who will send out crews to go figure out what's going on. The new satellite emergency notification devices. These are commercial rather than that COSPAT's SARSAT system. I have the newer one of this. I also have the older one of this. Unbeknownst to me, in about 2014, I was hunting up in northern Nevada, and I hit that button. These buttons are pre-programmed, so that will track me. That just turns it on. That sends a, hey, I'm okay and I'm checking in, and that is a custom message. And then you can pre-program this for a custom message as well. And then that's the, hey, I'm really in trouble SOS button that has a fancy cover on. I thought I had programmed my device for this one to say, I am camping here for the night. Apparently, I got my buttons backwards, and that was my, hey, I'm okay, but I'm going to be delayed in communicating. And at the time, Facebook was all the rage, and I had my device hooked up, so it was automatically posting my location because I thought it would be fun. It was updating notifications directly to my Facebook page. So everyone who was on my friends list, including the 300-person search and rescue team down in Las Vegas with Red Rock, all got notifications that Dave has got a problem, but he's okay. I was out of cell phone coverage, had no idea. Had my thing, was drinking beer around the fire, hadn't seen a deer all day because it's Nevada. Okay, speed up about 12 hours. So it's been about 24 hours since I was on cell phone coverage. I get right on top of the hill, finally get cell coverage, and my phone starts blowing up. And I find out that they went so far as they called the sheriff. The sheriff apparently drove up, saw that I was drinking beer next to the fire, and said, "Nah, there's nothing going on here. He's good," and just left me. I had no idea. So these things are coming on. They do work. They will notify people, especially if family and loved ones are paying attention. They'll give you updates. So they're great tools. And talking again about the national search plans, those are coordinating at the regional and state levels on how we're going to do business. Additional participating federal agencies, you got the Coast Guard, you got FEMA, you got Department of Transportation will provide some resources. Maritime people, the FAA will assist, especially with radar searching if you have an aircraft. So if you have an aircraft that was flying out of Browning and was supposed to be going to Kalispell and wandered off, the FAA will be involved with trying to get you guys radar hits on saying, hey, this is the last hit that we had. And the good old Department of Defense, who can provide a number of resources, including helicopters, technical rope teams with fire department. You can call down here to Maelstrom for all sorts of things. You just need to ask. NOAA's on here because they manage those satellites that monitor the search and rescue beacons. The FCC, the communication guys, they're on here because they're the ones that orchestrate the frequencies that we can use to coordinate a lot of this stuff. Okay. And that's talking more about the organizations and civil search and rescue and how we're supposed to do business. Federal Search and Rescue Coordination Centers. You have, this is the one close to my heart right here, the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center. It talks. Those guys are down in Tyndall Air Force Base currently, down in Florida. They have a big old room with a bunch of TVs and monitors, and they monitor and coordinate inland search and rescue for the military. That includes Civil Air Patrol, and they will assist with the Coast Guard as needed as well. So if you need a helicopter or a resource from Malmstrom, you call the AFRCC help desk and say, hey, I'm up here in Browning and I need X, Y, and Z. And they'll ask you a few questions and they'll get the ball rolling. And hopefully you got a helicopter or two or whatever resources you want. Again, you just call them and they start activating those federal resources to you. The key thing with that, with calling for these federal resources, is they are in the business of rescue, not recovery. In most cases, there are rare cases. But 99% of the time, they want to be activated sooner than later. When you're calling them on day 7, they're like, okay, is this really viable? Are we really? It's kind of harsh, but that's how they do business. And so, like day 1, day 2, you're like, okay, this is a lot bigger than we think. Let's call the cavalry. Call these guys. You can get me on a helicopter. You can get stuff from the fire department. If you ask, you can get Civil Air Patrol with extra ground pounders and especially fixed wing aircraft, which is going to be what's going to make money right there. You also have the Pacific Command, aka Alaska has their own search and rescue center because they're so big. So they do their own thing up there, and Coast Guard has a number of coordination centers in the U.S. on the coast. Any questions on any of that stuff? Okay. More national SAR supplement plans. Again, we're talking about the same. Just know that they exist, and this is what explains how federal resources, everything from Homeland Security, Border Patrol, National Park Service, how they can support civil SAR operations. All right. And they're talking about in here where my degree comes in play, where, hey, we want you to have your local emergency managers are hopefully having an active part with pre-coordinating these resources. So when you do have an individual that goes missing, when Bob goes hunting and you have no idea where he is, just a rough guess of where he was supposed to be, and you're like, we need more resources, right? Ideally, that local emergency manager will have hopefully have already like, well, okay, we already know. Let me help law enforcement coordinate with this. Let me help them get some additional resources. Oh, you're having bad communication. Hey, let's call the local ham radio guys, get them to come out here and they can start relaying messages for us. Things like that. Hey, we need some extra logistic stuff. Okay, let's get CERT out here. Those guys I was talking about earlier, that community emergency response team, even if they're not helping act physically doing a search, you can get them out there to do things like, hey, they're going to drive their pickup truck around and they're going to pick up search crews. Once you get done with searching this field, they're going to pick you up and drop you off on another field. Fun little logistical things like that just frees up people to do the actual searching. Okay, NIMS, and I know this is a whole lot to cover tonight, okay? And please ask questions if you have them. NIMS, it's the National Incident Management System. We commonly refer to it just as the Incident Command System. They're just talking what we call it at the national level. This all spewed out between wildland operations from our wildland firefighter, from the big wildfires in the 80s and 90s, particularly in California and a few other places, that evolved into 9/11, and the 9/11 took things a step further. We're like, no, we just don't want the fire department to do this. We want everybody to do this. And it will talk about things about when talking on the radios, you're using plain English. So no 10 codes, no weird little codes or acronyms or things like that. The one exception is if we're doing a search and we're doing a large search and we briefing everybody, hey, we're going to have a code word. If you find a subject and they're deceased, we want you to say, um, 1060, or want to say we found, we got a target, or whatever you come up with. The key thing with that, the only way that that's allowed to work is everyone is briefed at the beginning of the incident. They don't want incidences where the fire department over here is using their own internal 10 codes and the sheriff department's using their other 10 codes that nobody understands. And here we are as volunteer search and rescue people right in the middle going, I have no idea what they're talking about. They're trying to remove all of that. And my wildland firefighter can contest, or my firefighters can contest where this has come in because of that. We're not using common terminology and people are getting into trouble and getting into places because of these events. And so that has transformed into our national response framework, which again is more on the national level. When you do those FEMA courses and start nibbling at them, they start to become redundant, but they'll be talking about NIMS, they'll be talking about the national response framework, they'll be talking about just like what happened in North Carolina. Hey, we have a big regional operation and we have a disaster area that's spreading over 3 states. How do we coordinate this? This is how we coordinate this. And that is more talking of the same, saying, hey, how we all fit into this. So if we took this into case for the reservation, because you guys are a federal entity, hey, we got us as volunteers. We're here. Internal, so that could be reservation, law enforcement, federal government. Okay, now we got the military, we got DOD, we got the Air Force, we got the National Guard, we got the FBI participating. And that's, you can start to see how all of this starts to build up. But the whole idea is we're all using the same plan. Even my military guys, my active duty guys still have to take these courses. And that's more talking boring national planning stuff that we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes. Anyone have any basic questions on NIMS or ICS? You're going to go into it a lot more when you do those courses. Okay. When we do that, I'm trying to come up on the 25th and the 26th to help with the cold search. And I'm trying to help make sure that you guys are kind of working underneath that framework. And it makes things so much easier when everybody's working under that as a management format. I've had friends in the search and rescue community that they organized their wedding into ICS system. The bride was the incident commander. The groom was in charge of finance. The bridesmaid was in charge of operations, and they built it up just as an incident command system, chain of command, and they had that laid out for the entire wedding, and they did everything under ICS. And it was amazing to see and completely nerdish to see, but it was awesome. FEMA, talking about those urban search and rescue teams. The FEMA teams are spread out across the United States. In addition to the federal ones, there are a number of state ones. You typically see those in the larger communities, such as Florida, California, Washington, whatnot. Besides the big federal FEMA teams, they will have, hey, we have a local search and rescue or urban search and rescue team built up from 2 fire departments, just as an example. These are a federal resource under the USAR system. They have 28 tasks or 28 task forces that are built to be self-sustaining for a period of about 17 days. They can go and they're completely self-sustaining. They do not need additional resupply. Uh, they do not need anything else unless something else happens. And that's the whole idea, because when you have these disasters, such as the really big tornadoes in Alabama and Mississippi and these places, when when an entire town gets completely annihilated, there's no resources to use. So that when they come in, you need to be self-sustaining. And likewise, when you come in as a search and rescue, as a SARTEC 2 individual, right, and especially as a canine handler or a horse handler, um, I'm expecting you as a search manager that you are going to be able to be self-sustaining. You have everything that you need for at least 24 to 72 hours. Now, yeah, I'm going to try to get the canteen out here. I'm going to get the Salvation out here to get us, some breakfast burritos and stuff and some coffee, but that's not always a guarantee. Plan that, hey, we're going to show up, and next thing I know, I'm on a helicopter and you're flying 45 minutes into the Bob Marshall and getting dropped off in the middle of nowhere, right? That's that's kind of the mindset that you're eventually trying to build yourself up to, that, hey, I'm good for the next 24 hours with whatever's on my body. Talking about the task force, they're usually built up of 80 individuals, including search, rescue, planning, medical. Um, they will also have truck drivers, and you're like, that's kind of odd. They have a section in their logistics that they have commercial driver's licenses and they drive all the big semi trucks, and their purpose is they just do logistics. They do not do searching. They're not going into the buildings. They're not doing that. That's other individuals. And you can see here where you have the searchers, you have the canine handlers, right? It's kind of hard to see, but they got some dark German shepherds up front. So hey, that's your searchers. And the searchers are going and marking and saying, hey, there's people that need to be rescued here. And then the rescuers are coming in with the airbags and the other equipment and like, hey, how do we get to that individual? Then you got the people in planning who are figuring out, okay, is this building structurally sound? What are we doing tomorrow? What's going on? Let's talk to the locals to integrate with them. And then you have a small medical component to either help both individuals that they're finding, depending on the situation, but more importantly, they're focusing on themselves. A lot of times they try to hire a vet tech or a veterinarian themselves, so they have that support for the canines, and the intent of that is to support themselves and to support their people. And the big things that they do is structural collapse, 9/11, like you can see here, Oklahoma City, wide area disaster search. That's like the tornadoes situation, earthquakes, the wildfires in Southern California. Swift water searches that were going on in North Carolina, and the flooding going down in the South the last couple of weeks. A number of the teams have been activated for that. And this is talking about EMAC, which just means that there's documentation in place saying that if there's a big search going on in the panhandle in the northern tier of Idaho, Montana, and Washington can come in and support those operations, either from a search or a federal disaster area. That's the legal term, and that's that talking between the governors and the states saying that, hey, we can help each other, and it's already been pre-planned out. So when it does happen, everyone's not looking around at each other and scratching their heads and like, okay, how we want to do this, how we want to get reimbursed. Hey, I know this is kind of weird. All those questions have been hopefully been pre-planned out, and they can just go. All right, Amber Alerts. Nearing the end, guys, I promise. Okay, Amber Alerts, great tool for law enforcement. The key thing with this, and I know your organization is really hot and heavy with a lot of this stuff, the child has to be in immediate danger of injury or death. They have to have idea of the abductor, a vehicle, what they're looking out for, and that's when those broad Amber Alerts come out that, hey, everyone look out for a 2004 blue Honda Civic with a 40-year-old gentleman give description who has custody of his 7-year-old daughter, and he shouldn't be having that, and we think that the child might be in danger. That's when that happens. They will not do Amber Alerts for runaways. They will not do them for some other cases. They have to meet particular criteria. And I've seen a lot of discussions on Facebook before when you have a kid that's missing and they're like, well, why didn't they do an Amber Alert? Well, the reason being is, the 15-year-old's a runaway. Yeah, we're going to send notifications out. We're going to tell people to keep an eye out, but they won't go to the full, we're going to buzz everybody's cell phones to keep an eye out for this individual because it has to meet this very particular criteria. Silver Alert program. It is just kind of like a Amber Alert, except it's for individuals, particularly senior citizens, individuals with Alzheimer's disease, dementia, other mental disabilities. I believe they did do a silver alert a couple months ago for an individual that went missing out of Great Falls. He was at the bar and he left and nobody knew what happened to him. He eventually found out deceased up on the High Line, but he was just so far and he just ended up in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere up on the High Line somewhere. And a farmer just one day finally found him, and he had been there for quite some time, they believe. But this is those notifications that can come out to try to help with these situations. Nick Mick, again, the workership that's going on for finding missing children. They can provide some good resources, and I believe you guys are working with these entities. Oh, somebody's in the waiting room. I am so sorry. Okay. So I know I just covered a whole ton of things, but to recap, we talked about components to your local SAR system, right? You sometimes have entities at the city or town level. Most of search and rescue, especially in Montana, is based at the county level or higher. That is built up between either sheriff teams, such as Gallatin County Sheriff Department has a embedded search and rescue team. They are very dialed in and they are very elaborate. Other places, such as Cascade County, Great Falls, the search and rescue team here is a 501c3 and is completely not controlled by the sheriff department, which I'll just say causes issues because the sheriff department wants them to act and respond in a certain way, and then the volunteers are like, no, we're independent, we're only part of you when we want to be, which is a shame. You also have independent search and rescue teams such as Central Montana Canine, where we're a 501c3 and anybody can call us as long as it's a individual. And you're going to hear this term a lot further in the course. Authority having jurisdiction, AHJ. And that would be in Cascade County, that would be the Cascade Sheriff is in charge of a missing person search. Or for you guys, I believe it's the Homeland Security Law Enforcement that is on the reservation. That's going to be the entity overseeing that operation. They're the ones ultimately have control. Doesn't mean you guys can't control help a lot. Doesn't mean you can't do a joint incident command system. Doesn't mean that you can't do a whole ton of things. It just means at the end of the day, they're technically the ones in charge. And it's really important, as we were talking earlier today about self-deploying, the stuff that was going on in North Carolina. for about, gosh, probably 3 months at least. On a number of the Facebook pages, somebody will come up and says, "I need a cadaver dog here like tomorrow in North Carolina," and we're like, "Who are you? Who are you? This is not how you get us. This is not how you get activation." If you're a local entity looking for outside resources because everyone's tired and depleted, okay, but you want to talk to the right entities, and not just show up, because that's when people start stepping on top of each other. That's when issues occur, um, that can endanger people, that can mess up searches, that can have issues like you saw the individual who almost got arrested because he landed his helicopter in the wrong place in North Carolina. The issue was not that he was not trying to help. That wasn't the issue. The issue was he was not talking to local entity who was running the operation, and they were putting people at risk because now there's this egg beater of death landing here, and not talking to anyone. And that's an issue. As much as like, hey, I get it, you're dropping off supplies, you're helping, but you're doing it in the wrong fashion. So we don't want to do that, and that's why we're doing this certification, and that's why we're talking about it. Is we want to do things the right way, the professional way, in a way that is beneficial to get the job done, to locate the missing, rescue the living, and recovery of those who sadly cannot be saved. We talked about the international search and rescue, the aeronautic and maritime search and rescue stuff, all those manuals. Again, unless you guys are in Alaska or some other places on the coast, you probably won't see that too much, but just know that they do exist. They are a thing. Oh, and get here. We talked about all sorts of federal resources. And again, up on the reservation, we found out, not too long ago, because you are on the reservation, you can activate organizations or resources such as Maelstrom and Civil Air Patrol right away. Um, Other county entities, they'll get asked, well, have you used all your local resources yet? Yes, or no, they'll kind of give them the runaround. It's like, no, 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 I need these resources and I need them now. So that speeds things up, and that speeds up way to get you more resources quicker, and some really nice equipment as well. We talked about the National SAR supplement. It's basically that is saying, hey, from the international manual, we water that down to our version, what we do in the US, and then that breaks down into land SAR and maritime SAR. Talked about the National Incident Management System, NIMS, aka that's Incident Command System. We talked about that national framework, and that's all that common terminology, and that goes back to this document that I was showing you guys earlier, right? Where what we're trying to build ourselves up to is not, hey, we're not just a search team, we are a type 3 wilderness search team. We have additional resources with a type 3, a type 2 canine cadaver dog, horse resources. All of that has been spelled out here. So regardless of what they're doing in Missoula, you could say we are a type 3, and they can come here and go, oh, okay, so that means you have at least two team members and or two team leaders who are certified, six members in support. You are proficient in land navigation, GPS, UTM, which is all the stuff that we're doing in this course. You have radios and communications. You can talk to everybody, and that's how all this starts to filter out. Real quick, let's go to here. And likewise, just to keep on this pattern, talking about that, and this is all coming from that national framework, right? This is when we go to Idaho, we go to South Dakota, like when we're saying that, hey, we're this, because they're like, I don't know, what are you? And you say, no, we are uh, a type 3 area lifeline air sent canine team. That means, hey, we can operate for 24 hours or less, and we should be able to cover 40 to 60 acres, right? That's what they're saying. And all of this breaks down to, capabilities. When you get into the type 1, you can do night operations. You're certified to that. But that's just breaking down that common terminology of what we are here in Montana to somebody in Utah or even a different county of, no, we're providing this service at this skill level at the national standard. And you're going to start turning heads because people are going to be like, oh, that's what you're talking about. Because I got a couple firefighters in comparison, uh, a type 1 wilderness team is a hotshot crew, hotshot or smoke jumpers. That's their little bubble. If I were to bring up that standard, that's what they're talking about of, that's kind of where that jump is. Nope, not what I wanted. Sorry. We talked about Amber Alerts, Silver Alerts, Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That's it. What questions you got for me, guys?
So I have my CPR training already. It expires in about a year. Would I just
You're fine.
Okay.
Then you don't need it. Then shoot me a reminder. Here. Then
I also have the same.
Okay.
I get it through Wildland Fire every time
Okay.
I have to review.
Okay, so also what I'll do is I'll send you guys all an email as a group message, and then you guys all respond back to me of what you need. If you guys don't need the CPR stuff and you don't need the wilderness first aid, if you got something higher, if you have EMT, if you have first responder, let me know, and then I'll figure out if I need anything from you, or then a couple dollars just to kind of cover the Zoom stuff and keep stuff going. But we'll do it that way but you're absolutely right. If you guys already have those certifications and they're going to be current for probably the next year, then you're right. You don't need to retake that.
All right.
And
Thank
then, yep. And then for those of you who are like firefighters who have NIMS, and I know some of you already do, I just need to see a copy of that transcript or those certs. You don't need to go reinvent the wheel for this.
Yeah, I could send you my red card.
No, just have it for you. Just have that for Skills Day, because that's when we'll be signing out all the packets. And so on the packet, I just have to verify that,
Okay,
oh, yes,
copy.
you've had that. And be like, oh, cool, you got that? Cool, I'm going to sign you off. But
We all
Okay,
still
copy
need
that.
the. We do, but I just want to make sure Thomas put your name and email in the chat.
say that one more. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, let me put my email address in here. Oh,
And Thomas also, so you can reach Thomas.
yes.
What's
Yes.
that?
Please put in the chat your name, first, last name, and email. I'm going to put this in a little spreadsheet. And then if you know offhand, if you're going to need first aid or CPR, then I'll send you probably a PayPal thing in the next couple days so I can get you that additional course so you can do that, so I can get you those cards as well.
Okay, copy.
Yeah. The good news is the way that I was trying to do this class is that we don't do more than one chapter a night, because they can get kind of arduous and a little dry, and I apologize for that. But they do get a little more interesting as time goes on. Is there anything else that I can do for you guys for the night?
Nope, just excited to learn and get this going.
So
Thank you.
Yep. Here, I'm going to turn off the recording, but I'll stay on if people got questions and stuff. But I'll see you guys next time. If you guys want to give me 2 seconds, let me just verify what we're meeting next.